Welcome to Transition Talks Tuesday. This version is in partnership with the awesome School District of Janesville, and we really appreciate the partnership with them. Transition Talks Tuesdays is the opportunity to try to get all these different parts that's involved in transition from adolescence to adulthood for our kiddos with special healthcare needs, with 504s that just need maybe a little extra boost. And so we are really excited tonight to have representatives from the ADRC, Aging and Disability Resource Center, which I'm used to just saying ADRC. And so it's like, they've got a real name. So congratulations, you guys do have real names. I'm very excited that you are here tonight. So they have some important stuff that they want to share with you, and then there'll be time for questions and answers. Please feel free when we get to that to unmute yourselves. I will try to direct traffic as best I can. Also feel free to put your questions in the chat, and I will relay them to the presenters as well. The only thing that I would ask is if your screen name does not match the name that you registered under, if you can go to the upper right-hand corner, click on those three dots and give me some sort of name that is recognizable as a registrant. That just helps me know who is here. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be here tonight. And I'm excited. I'm going to start with introducing Jamie. I've known Jamie now for years, working with the CCOT. Very excited that you have joined us this evening.
Thank you. So I'm gonna share my screen with you guys because we made a PowerPoint presentation. So I just want you guys to have something to reference as we're talking about the Aging and Disability Resource Center here. Okay. All right, so as Tim mentioned, I'm Jamie and I'm from the Aging and Disability Resource Center, and I'm an information and assistance specialist. And then I'm going to let Jill introduce herself and say what her role is.
My name is Jill Hrycay, and I am a disability benefits specialist, and I am also part of the Aging and Disability Resource Center.
So just sharing where we are in the community. We are at the new Dr. Daniel Hale Williams Rock County Resource Center. And that, I don't think we're supposed to refer to it as old pick and save, but that's what people know it as. So I'll just throw that out there. So that is on the south side of Janesville. It's not far from our old location. We just moved across the street. You can access it by the public transit system. We are located on the southeast corner of the building. And that is actually where the buses drop off. So that makes it convenient. If you're coming there by car, there is specific parking over on that side of the building as well. If you come in the front door though, they will be happy to direct you down to the ADRC. So just going over what is the ADRC, for those who aren't familiar with it. It's the single point of contact to get information related to aging or living with a disability in the community. So we are often called a one-stop shop, that if you don't know where to go for something related to a disability or benefits, it's always a good place to start at the ADRC. If we're not the people who can help you, we can definitely direct you to who can help you or get you in contact with that resource. And the Aging and Disability Resource Centers, we are available to provide unbiased information. So we have a lot of resources in there, but we cannot say, pick this agency, they're better than this one, or I really like this one. It's just going to be unbiased information. We don't get paid by any of the agencies. So everything that we're presenting to you, it's unbiased, and we can review options and information with people to kind of weigh pros and cons of who they're working with. Another thing that we do is we provide assistance with applying for programs and benefits. So we'll be reviewing tonight just what programs those are and benefits that we're able to help with. And then there's no income or asset limit to using the ADRC. We work with people who have minimal incomes or resources and people who have very large incomes or resources to draw from. So the ADRC is for anybody who's looking for information. And again, all of the information that we provide, it is free, and everything that we do is confidential. Who the ADRC serves. So we work with, just like in our title, the aging and individuals with disabilities in the community. So that would cover individuals with intellectual disabilities, physical disabilities, and elderly. So we can start working with people at 17 and a half and work with them through end of life. We can work with people on and off over the years. So we might work with an individual when they're 17 and a half and maybe again at 18, and then we might not have any contact with them until later in life, 26, older, any age. We are a resource that can be used multiple times throughout the lifespan. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm an information assistance specialist. So this is just kind of what the information assistance portion of the ADRC consists of. We meet with individuals in their support system to provide what resources are available in the community. So that might be an individual themselves calling the ADRC and saying, I'm needing assistance with finding subsidized housing. We might work directly with them. That might be a parent calling and saying, my kid is going to be turning 18, they have a disability, they're going to be requiring some long-term support. So it can be, the individual or somebody in their life. Sometimes schools will reach out and we can coordinate kind of resources that are available with that school as well. So my role is to listen to people's needs and see what information or resources in the community could help them. And sometimes when people will call the ADRC or contact the ADRC, they don't even know why they're contacting. They're just saying, I was told I should call you guys can help us. So that's where that assessing needs comes into play. Everyone in the role I'm in, we're all familiar with that call and can guide that conversation to figure out what kind of support somebody is needing. Information can be provided multiple ways. That could be somebody calling the ADRC. That could be somebody coming into the office, is what we call a walk-in, where you come to the ADRC and you don't have an appointment and you just want to meet with somebody. It could be through a home visit, could be through email or written correspondence. So maybe you call in and you say, I'm needing some information on transportation options in Rock County. And we are able to say, can I mail you some information? And that might be sufficient. That might be the end of it. Or it might consist of just more information needed. And so in that case, we would typically do a home visit to meet with somebody or schedule an appointment just to gather some more information on what's going on. And typically, anytime we have contact with somebody at the ADRC, that would consist of us also following up to say, did you get that information I mailed out to you? Was that helpful? Did that meet your need? Just to make sure that that need was met, or if we need to look at more resources, or if maybe after you got that triggered something else that you're needing help with. So that's just one of the main reasons we do follow up, because sometimes when you have that contact, that brings up other things that might be needing help with. If you call or come to the ADRC, typically you would meet with somebody called an information assistance specialist and gather that information on what your need is, because it might be that person continuing to help you. It could be a referral to the benefit specialist, which that's what Jill is, and she'll be talking about that role. It might be connecting with children's programs, maybe if it's somebody who is younger than the age group that we work with, or it could be maybe connecting with mental health supports. But that first contact would typically be with that information and assistance specialist, just to steer you into the right, make sure that you're connected to the resources appropriate for you. So as I mentioned, sometimes in that contact, it's identified that some further assistance is needed. And in that case, we might do something that's called options counseling. So again, that's going to typically be a home visit. However, right now with COVID, we've been doing a lot of Zoom meetings or on the phone meetings, but that is a scheduled appointment where we're going to talk about the current situation. What is important to people, what's going well, what's not going so well, gaps of support, who's helping right now, to get a clear picture of what an individual's situation is, and then what services or programs are available to help meet that need. So when we're doing that, that might be an exploring of private pay if somebody has resources that they're able to pay for assistance, or looking at public benefits or services. So if we meet with somebody and maybe an identified need that we come up with is transportation difficulties. We might look at if somebody's able to pay for some private transportation, maybe through like Rock County Transit, or maybe it's a transportation to doctor appointments. And we'd look to see, does somebody have a benefit that would potentially cover this transportation need? If it's something that it's a long-term need that's going to be more intense, we might look at the long-term care programs. This meeting would consist of whoever that individual wants. We really like that person to be part of it, even if they have a guardian, because they have preferences in their life and have the right to speak up and say, this is what I want to see in my life. And they might have some other ideas, and maybe a guardian or parent has that they want for their future too. And then this conversation, again, unbiased information, the worker, the information assistance specialist, again, is there to kind of, guide the conversation, come up with areas that somebody might not have thought of. Actually, I do need help in that. And then connect those resources as well. So as I mentioned, one of the things that we might look at would be the publicly funded long-term care programs or services provided through that. And again, that would be if we're looking at somebody's needing fairly significant support throughout their day, and maybe they don't have the ability to pay for those services to meet that need, or there's not natural supports in place to help with that. So the long-term care programs, those are intended to assist an individual with living in the community as long as possible. A lot of times when people hear long-term care, they're thinking, oh, that the group home or assisted living or nursing home. And the programs are actually intended to keep people in the community. So even looking at like group home type options, that would be, not the place that somebody's going to start. They're going to look at how can we meet this person living as independently as possible. And that might look different for everybody. So the ADRC is the entry point for the long-term care programs. So in order to even enroll in a long-term care program, you always have to start with the ADRC. If you even want to know, about those programs, you contact the ADRC. That all starts with us. And our role in that is to determine if people are eligible for those programs through an assessment that goes throughout somebody's day to see where somebody is needing help.
So Jamie, can I just interrupt just to make from the children's side to the adult side?
Yeah.
Is that if a child has gone through the functional screen and is receiving long-term supports from the children's long-term support waiver, they then have to, they then use the ADRC to come into the eligibility for the long-term care program. There's not an automatic, if you're in children's, you're automatically in long-term care. They need to make that step of contacting the ADRC.
Yes, and so one of the things that in the last year, Tim, that we've done to help streamline that, because there's a lot of things happening when somebody turns 18, and it can be overwhelming with, there's changes coming at you from school, from benefits, from programs, guardianship maybe, or supported decision-making. So one thing that we have done in Rock County is if your child is in the children's long-term care program, your case manager will make a referral to the ADRC. And then I am typically the one that will reach out to that family and start the process. So that has alleviated a lot of hiccups because parents were like, I don't know why I'm calling this place. I don't know what this number is. And so things were kind of getting lapsed. So we had just decided we'll do the legwork and call them as long as we get that referral. So if you're working with a children's program, that case manager makes that referral. If you're not working with a children's program, then still more than welcome to come to call us.
And when will you be rolling that out to the rest of the ADRCs in Wisconsin?
Well, when I had even proposed a CLTS, they jumped on it because I mean, they were doing a lot of that follow-up with those families of, did you call yet? Did you call yet? So.
Because you're absolutely right, Jamie. I mean, just the amount of agencies, organizations, and tasks that families and youth have to do at that age of 18. It's easy for one to slip through the cracks. So I appreciate you not letting it slip through.
Yeah, well, and ADRCs, a lot of families still haven't heard of that. And we're still even newer in Rock County of opening in 2013. So when they see ADRC and this number, one, they don't know what it is. Otherwise, they just hear the aging part of it and they go, that's for old people. So trying to break that too. So the publicly funded long-term care enrollment, when we talk about these programs, the long-term care programs, the ADRC determines if people are functionally eligible for the programs, and that is through an assessment. Like I had mentioned, that we're going to gather information on where people are needing support throughout their day. So we'll talk about tasks like bathing, dressing, making meals, managing medication, managing money, decision-making, a lot more information than just those things. Those are just a handful of things that we talk about. And then we'll gather information from their doctors and often the IEP from schools, if that's available, just for some more background information. Again, if somebody's in the children's program, they share some information as well. And then we also have that as kind of a collateral to talk to. And then the other piece of being eligible for the long-term care programs is the financial eligibility, and that is determined by Medicaid requirements. The long-term care programs are funded by Medicaid, so we would work with somebody to obtain that. If they aren't already on it, we would look at means for them to be on Medicaid. That could be working with an information assistance specialist, such as myself, or working with the benefit specialist in the role that Jill is in. And then if somebody is eligible for the program, the ADRC would review what programs that individual is eligible for and then complete that enrollment. So we do a meeting called enrollment counseling where we look at the long-term care programs, which are called family care and IRS, to explain what somebody is eligible for, the differences between those programs, and then the programs themselves. And I didn't go too much into detail on those because I'm not sure if that's a topic in the future. And then the one other thing I just wanted to touch on that the ADRC does is we take all the adult at risk referrals or adult protective service referrals. And so this is, we take it for people who are being physically abused, financially exploited, neglect. So that is one of the things that we do as well. And that's just calling the general number.
So Jamie, we will not be having anybody in to talk about the differences sort of between family care and IRIS. If there's any way that either you and Jill could just touch on some of the differences and the choices families have. And I really do appreciate you emphasizing that ADRC isn't going to tell you which one, but they're going to provide you the information on both of them.
So I'll touch base on just kind of what those two programs are. As I mentioned previously, it is family care and IRS. So family care is a managed care organization construct similar to like an HMO. It's an MCO. So they are contracted with providers throughout Rock County to provide support to people in their home. So these could be supportive home care providers or providers who do daily living skills. They work with DVR often on like job coach, employment type skills, transportation. So they have providers throughout Rock County to provide support. And with family care, you work with a team. So you have a case manager and a nurse case manager who are helping you come up with what your service plan is going to be. And then ultimately that the care team, that case manager and nurse case manager, they kind of have the final say in what services you're going to get, because they have to justify any service that is being requested to say, yes, this person does need it. We've explored all other means for them to have this service. And so that is family care. It's, you know, a team-based approach. And in Rock County, we have two managed care organizations. One is called My Choice Wisconsin, and the other one is called Inclusa. The other long-term care program is called IRIS. It stands for I Respect, I Self-Direct. And that is, just like in their name, a self-directed program. So somebody would work with what's called an IRIS consultant, and that is different than a case manager in that the best way I always explain it to people is they're there to navigate you through the system, but you were in the driver's seat. That somebody is deciding what services they want and who is going to provide those. So it does require a little bit of more footwork for that individual in that program, but it also provides some more flexibility on what services that they're receiving and who's providing them. And there are 4 IRIS consultant agencies in Rock County. There is TMG, Connections, Advocates for You, and oh boy, I can't remember the last one. I will look that up as Jill is talking. When you work with these programs, if you're enrolled in one and maybe after a while you're like, this is not a good fit for me, I want to switch to the other program, you can do that at any time. You just work with ADRC with that. So with that said, I'm going to hand it over to you, Jill, and I will try to find that other IRIS consultant agency.
Okay, sounds good. So my name is Jill. I am a disability benefits specialist at the ADRC of Rock County. And my job is, there are 2 of us, 2 DBSs, so I'll refer to the disability benefits specialist as a DBS. So there are 2 DBSs in the Rock County office. And our job is to help provide people with information on benefits. So those benefits could be some private benefits, but mostly public benefits. And some of those benefits are listed on the slide. So a lot of times it's just talking with someone, figuring out what they need, realizing that, hey, you're not getting what you should be getting. And we make sure that we either connect a person with how to apply for those, or in some cases, we will facilitate that phone call to file an application, or try to submit things online, things like that. So if we don't feel that someone can follow up on that themselves, or we don't think they're going to follow up and we see a need, we will do a little bit more encouraging to get that need met. So you can go ahead and go to the next slide, Jamie. Okay, so these are some of the things that a DBS can help with. Obviously, there are things that come up that we can deal with on a case-by-case basis. And sometimes we can't help with everything that, you know, we may have helped a neighbor with or a friend with. It's just every situation's a little bit different, but we can help with assisting in completing applications. And that would be applications for food share, Badger Care, you know, any type of Medicaid program, and Social Security, disability, or SSI. That being said, sometimes if it's an application, sometimes we make a referral to the Social Security office. Sometimes we actually sit down with a person and do the online application and then call Social Security to facilitate that interview. So every case is different. And then we work with Disability Rights Wisconsin. And so we make sure that we provide information if somebody feels that, you know, either we can't help them or it's something that is over, you know, what we can do. We either refer them to disability rights or, you know, like the state ombudsman program or something like that. And just sometimes it's just a matter of letting people know their appeal rights for different denials. Sometimes people are denied Medicaid for a certain reason and they don't feel like they should have been, or obviously a big one for us is Social Security benefits or SSI, supplemental security income. And I'll kind of get into the differences with those programs. You're good, Jamie. Okay, so this is kind of a big one. Whenever Jamie and I talk to people or whenever people come in, one of the big questions people have is about Social Security. And people interchange disability with SSI, you know, and other programs that Social Security, you know, I guess manages. So Social Security itself, you apply through Social Security for disability, for the SSI, and also they handle the Medicare. So when someone's on disability, they become eligible for Medicare, not SSI. If someone's on SSI, typically they get Medicaid with that, or always, and most of the time they don't become eligible for Medicare unless they're receiving SSI and also something on a parent benefit or something. But with disability, and I'll kind of explain the difference between those two, people do become eligible for Medicare. The only two ways a person can get Medicare is to become disabled, and what I mean by become disabled, I mean disabled in the eyes of Social Security. So get that determination, and then 24 months after that, you become eligible for Medicare. The only other way to become eligible for Medicare is to turn 65. Supplemental security income is for people who have a disability who either haven't worked enough and don't have enough work credits to collect a payment from, or they maybe worked a very long time ago and those work credits don't last forever and they go away. It's called being insured. So after several years, it's about 5 years. If I worked 5 years ago, let's say, or over that, my work credits might be gone. And so I might not be able to collect under my under disability. So I might only be eligible for SSI if I were to become disabled. SSI is a needs-based program. So it looks at income, it looks at assets. Yeah, I think I jumped ahead to this screen, but yeah, so and as this says, you can still work and receive SSI. It's a little bit strict, you know, more strict than disability. Something really important is if somebody is receiving SSI as a child, and they turn 18, it is up to Social Security to reach out to that person and initiate that application into adult SSI. Something to note though, the definition is different. So there's going to be different thresholds that a person's disability will have to meet as an adult compared to as a child. So it's something to think about. So it's not an automatic when you become an adult, you don't automatically continue with that SSI. Can you go back a slide, Jamie? I don't know, did I skip? Okay. So if somebody comes to us or on their own decides that they would like to apply for either SSI or SSDI, which is Social Security Disability Insurance, then they would file an application. The local office handles all of the processing. So they might call and ask about finances. They might call and ask about where do you live? What's your living arrangement? That can affect your payment, things like that. Once they do their part, they send your application up to usually Madison, but when the Madison office gets too busy, they do go to other states sometimes. But typically they go to the Disability Determination Bureau, otherwise known as the DDB, which is in Madison. And they're the ones who make the decision. Your case will be assigned an examiner. They will look, they'll request your medical records. You'll have signed releases for all of that. They'll get those records and they'll make the decision of whether your case or your claim meets the definition of being disabled. And what they look at, it's pretty involved, but it's a 5-step program, and they're trying to determine if someone can work full time. So even if you can work part time, you still might qualify for disability. They are supposed to look at if someone could hold a job 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. So a lot of times people think, well, I'm working and I won't qualify, and that's not always the case. So don't just think that, because you still might qualify. Okay. I think I kind of touched on that already. Okay.
So this is the contact information for the ADRC. We are open from 8 to 4:30, Monday through Friday, again, by phone, or you can just walk in. We might not solve your problem when you walk in. That might still result in us scheduling a home visit or an additional meeting, depending upon what your need is. And then our website, our email address, and then we are also on Facebook at Aging and Disability Resource Center of Rock County. That is the end of our presentation. We wanted to leave time for questions or discussion. I remembered the last IRS consultant agency, so I don't want to drop them off. So the IRS consultant agencies in Rock County are Advocates for You, Connections, TMG, and First Person. So I'm going to stop share. I will share this presentation with Tim to send out to everybody. And I saw questions coming in, but I didn't look at any of them. So I can kind of go through stuff now if people had questions. Oh, Tim was just on it with all the websites and resources.
Yeah. Basically, the chat is full of everything that I want to put onto a resource sheet.
No, that's great.
To attach to the presentation.
That's great.
And we will be, if technology works okay, we will be posting a copy of a video recording of the presentation as well. So that was another question that came into me, and yes, we will get that done. So other questions that people have, this is a lot of information. So please feel free to put your questions in the chat or unmute and ask away.
Oh, we answered them all, I guess. We're so good.
That was a lot of information. You guys went through a lot in a short period of time. Thank you. That was awesome.
Yeah. Again, like I had said, if, if somebody's needing help calling the ADRC, schools or supports can always help call with the individual. If somebody is over 18, and they're their own person, we're going to need to speak with them. If they have a guardian, that guardian will have to be involved in the conversation. Something I didn't touch on, because I think there was going to be, or there might have already been a presentation on guardianship. We can provide kind of general information on guardianship. Something I provide with a lot of families is also alternatives to guardianship, because sometimes people think guardianship you have to do if somebody has a disability, which is not true. And there's more options now available in Wisconsin too to help with supported decision making. So that's something I often review with families as well.
I think we wanted to touch on too, I know Jamie, you and I talked about when somebody calls and the first thing that will happen is they will speak to an INA like Jamie, and there's always somebody to answer the phone 8 to 4:30, even during the lunch hour. And then those, if the information and assistance specialist determine that there's a need with someone else in the office, then they would make a referral. And then that referral would come to somebody like me or somebody else, and then we would follow up and call that person back and find out more information about what's needed.
And something when somebody calls, information that we will get from them is their name, date of birth. Often we'll collect like address information, basic demographic things. And that is because when any call comes in, we log those, just so if somebody is to call back later, whoever takes that call then can look back and see what information was provided, because we don't want to duplicate anything. Or it might allow us to say, oh, it looks like we helped you with this. Did you have a chance to reach out? And it might just be that trigger that goes, oh, that's right, I did call you guys, I have to call that place. But really, it's also just to not duplicate things on our end, that we can help people as best as possible. In addition, I don't know, Tim, if you have that flyer that there's a training on supported decision making in February, I think. It's like a half-day training. This one's by Zoom. I went to one in person right before COVID. And it was a very thorough training, good speakers, helpful in understanding what different options are.
Jamie, I feel like I should have written down all the questions I have called you for over the years. We could take up the rest of this time. I know that you have helped me often when I have general questions that a parent is asking me. You kind of direct me into the right areas. Is that something school can they reach out to you as well if it's a general question, or maybe to help them play that go between parents and the ADRC? Because I know sometimes that is overwhelming.
Technically, I mean, it's anybody can call just the general ADRC, but a lot of times schools will reach out to me just because we have a relationship and they've seen me at like CCOT, and I've spoke at TAN meetings before. So I don't mind if it's just kind of general. If I get like an email, occasionally, teachers will have my email, so they'll just send it to me. And if I know anybody can answer it, I might just send it on to one of my coworkers, just because I can't work with everybody at the ADRC. But no, that's when you ask me stuff, that is perfectly reasonable. And it does get families in the right direction. Well, Tim, it doesn't look like anybody else is asking questions.
I see that. I'm making myself a note of the chat because that's how I work off the resource sheet is
Yeah.
I'm just writing myself a note of there so y'all can ignore it. Information on the 2022 SDM training. Okay, I would ask that people, if you have a couple moments here, to please go ahead and take a moment and hop over to the feedback site so that we know how we're doing. If we should continue these with different places or do this again with Rock County in a few years. Would remind you that we do have another Transition Talk Tuesday coming up. Next time we'll be together will be our November 23rd. We'll be talking about how healthcare changes too. You'll be presenting, I will be presenting along with my adult son, Hunter, which is always an enjoyable time for me. So I hope you come out and enjoy yourself with us. If you've already registered for that, don't worry. We have that information, but if you haven't and you want to attend, please feel free to attend that one as well. Jamie and Jill, thank you so very much. School District of Janesville, great idea. This is going really well. Really love the number of people that are showing up and the interaction. So have a great rest of your evening. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.